This is the story of Ch.1, a man whose childhood was not easy. He grew up in the small town of AudioBook, on the outskirts of the capital. It was a town without law, since the forces of order had no presence in the place. Son of a father addicted to alcohol, miserable as well as his luck, a retired soldier without pain or glory, only the wounds that were causes. Lost in alcohol and debt, he was losing the little he managed to earn at the cost of his blood, leaving his family in ruins. His mother, on the other hand, was a completely ignorant farmer. She lived all her life among the dung, taking care of her family's cattle and the fields in spring. When Ch.'s father led them to ruin, she had to start selling her body to the locals and the occasional traveler who passed through the place and was looking for cheap pleasure. However, Ch. grew up almost on his own, with a strong, indomitable, and persevering character. This is his story. Year 200 after the emergence of the god Ch. Ch. was already 9 years old, and since every day he escaped from his chores at home and ran into the forest, he did not have many friends except Alphonse, the son of the local carpenter. Once they entered the forest, they took out some wooden swords from a hollow tree that Alphonse's father carved for them as a gift, and they played 4 hours at being knights. As the hours passed and the sunlight was waning, the forest became increasingly dark and the young bows had to return. And like every day, Ch.'s parents beat him for not contributing anything at home, to which the young man only responded,
"I am not interested in being part of this family. You lied without purpose and I want to grow up to be the same as you."
Harsh words coming from the mouth of a child, but the circumstances in which they lived conducive to that type of behavior. Day after day, Ch. and Alphonse played at being knights, and in this way, slowly they developed skill in handling the sword.
"Someday we'll be famous knights,"
Alphonse explained. Although they both knew that a commoner could never aspire to be a royal knight in the service of His Majesty the King. The years passed and Ch. grew up. This year he would be celebrating his 14th birthday. Despite the little affection shown and little money, his parents organized to make him a small celebration. Since in this desolate place far from the mercy of God, where there are constant conflicts and wars, children must mature quickly, always be ready to go to war, and give their lives for the good of their king. A couple of days before it took place, the atmosphere in the area felt heavy and tense. The locals were a little more cautious with the outlaws. And Ch. did not understand why, although it would not take long for fate to explain the reason. Dawn of the 13th day of the beginning of spring. Ch. woke up early just before sunrise. The roosters were crowing, announcing the imminent rise of the sun at dawn, and the tinkling of the cattle bells and the sound of the crickets was lost as the town woke up. A mist covered the whole place, but even so, without caring about it, he took a piece of bread from the table that his mother was setting and ran out towards the forest. He thought he would return in the afternoon, just to celebrate his birthday. For some reason this time, he did not wait for Alphonse, and went alone, playing with the sword. Time passed as fleeting as life itself. As evening arrived, the forest that always got so dark, strangely had a reddish glow in the distance. This thought was a bonfire for his celebration. He ran with a smile on his face towards the town. As it got closer, the brightness was more and more intense, and people began to be heard shouting, the galloping of horses, and the noise of swords colliding. Ch. arrived at the edge of the town and could not believe what his eyes saw. The town was on fire, and the people who lived in there were lifeless on the ground. It was such a horrible scene that it could be a horror story, but it wasn't. It was real, and it was happening in front of his eyes. With teary eyes, and with the hands covering his mouth, he silenced his crying to avoid being caught by the horde of bandits that attacked the town. The attack was quick and cruel, and the noise of people dying gradually ceased. After the looting, the bandits left and Estiu came out of hiding towards his house. The earth was made of mud by blood. The devastated town was still on fire, and the houses were falling to pieces. Between sobs and tears, he continued advancing in search of his family. Passing by the carpenter's house, he saw his lifeless friend Alphonse there, with a stick in his hand, wielding it as a sword, which unfortunately was useless against the bandits. He had a huge cut on his stomach, and his guts were out. When someone dies, it's expected to leave with a face of peace and tranquility, but this was not the case with Alphonse. His face reflected the terror that he experienced in his last minutes of life. Estiu vomited. When witnessing that image, he cried so much that the snot dripped from his nose, and his vision clouded with tears.
I'll be back later for you, my friend.
He said between sobs and went home. The entire town was on fire, and there was no living existence left, except his. The smell of burning flesh and bones and the rivers of blood that ran through the streets and alleys of the town made it increasingly difficult to move forward. When he finally went home, just what he was fearing. It was completely on fire with the remains of his family inside. He couldn't do anything for them. He sat down to wait for the fire to go out, while he continued crying in pain for having been left alone in this world. After a couple of hours, it seemed that the sky felt sorry for him, and it began to rain, putting out the flames. When he was finally able to enter, there were no traces of his parents' bodies, only ashes. While walking in the ruins of what until yesterday was her home, the fire-damaged flooring broke, causing her foot to get stuck. By the time he managed to get it out, he realized that there was a metal box under the floor that had been hidden until then. Estiu pulled it with all his strength and managed to get it out. With the stone, he hit the padlock and opened it. What was inside were not coins or jewelry. It was just an old sword in poor condition, which had belonged to his father in his days as a soldier. Even so, Estiu took it with him and left there. When he was leaving, he turned back, and although he was not a fervent believer in Zed, he prayed for 1 minute and asked for their souls. Then he left. He gets to where the body of his friend was lying. He loaded up and take it to the place where they used to play. There would be the eternal resting place of his great friend Alphonse. After burying him, he said goodbye. He began his march aimlessly, following the course of a small river that was nearby, hoping to find a town further on. This is the end of Chapter 1. I hope you all enjoyed it as much as I did making it. And if you liked it, please subscribe to my channel and like the video. It would help me a lot.